So today we will be running through, creating a poster or booklet for your submission on InDesign. And I'll just mention some tips and tricks that I do to speed up the process. So one thing from the start is before you open your document, you'll notice that if you're using InDesign, there's always this default font that isn't really the best or isn't particularly the nicest. So before you open a document, you could go to Type, Font, and choose your default selection from here. So what I have now is Roboto, which I've downloaded from Google Fonts, and there's a bunch of nice ones that are free licenses that you could use for your project, and you could select from different types. So you could choose serif fonts or sans serif fonts, and yeah, these are a better selection, I'd say, than what we have on InDesign currently. So you can set your font through Type, Font, and selecting the family. So I'll make mine Roboto regular. And so once we open a new document through File, New, and then Document, we'll pretend that we're doing a poster. So I'll change this to inches, and let's say it's 24 by 36. So 24 inches by 36 inches. And we don't want facing pages, but just basically means like we're creating a book or a magazine that has a spine in between. So we want these as separate posters, so we can uncheck that. And we'll have something like 2 posters. When you do your columns, it's nice to have 3, considering the rule of thirds in terms of designing your layout. So we'll have 3 for now, but you could change that once the file has been created. We'll keep our gutter, so that just means in between the columns we have a 0.1 inch space, and we have a 0.2 quarter-inch space around the border of our page. So let's create that. All right. So first thing is we need our information, our content to be placed into InDesign. So we could select this frame box, or simply type F to activate the frame function. And it's a simple click one corner and then deselect at the other corner. But before you do that, while you're in this mode, while you're creating your selection box, you can use the arrow keys to create multiple frames that are equally divided and spaced. So if I press the up arrow, I could create multiple frames that way, and then using the right arrow, create multiple frames this way. And I could also adjust the distances between the frames while holding Control and then using the arrows. But it gets a little finicky because you can't just hold the arrow, so you kind of have to tap it quite a few times to get it into the right space. So we'll say we have something like this. Actually, no, let's do that. We'll have our elevation and section together, kind of thing. So there we have our frame boxes. I can modify this after it has been executed, after I've let go, by holding or clicking one of the corners and holding spacebar before I move. So here I'm altering the space in between the 2 boxes. They're overlapping now, and I've made the spacing a lot further. So that was selecting these 2 boxes, clicking the corner and holding spacebar. Right, now to place in an object, we can simply press Control D. So that's the place shortcut, and I have all my files in one folder. And I suggest that if you were to create an InDesign file, that you would copy all your deliverables and documents into another folder, just in case if ever something is removed or accidentally deleted or altered, then you have a backup of this for your InDesign file. And also I'll show you what would happen if something were replaced and unlinked. So I'll take my west elevation, my east elevation, and I'm holding control to select multiple. And then we'll open it. And now these files are attached to my cursor, so I could simply place it on whichever frame boxes are open. So right now it's cut off. If I press A, we'll have our, what's the name of this? Direct selection tool, so we could select the objects within our frame. You'll see that it's a little bit cut off, and I don't want that. So there's a few ways we could adjust this. We could select these boxes and go to our properties panel. And near the bottom, we have frame fitting. So there's really two options that I like to do. It's the first one, which is fit it proportionally into the frame. So the shortest extents are filled, but you can see that because it's a long section, it's overlapping a bit. Instead, I'll select my boxes, holding shift to select more than one. And I'll choose the second option, which is fit content proportionally. And so these will fit nicely. It's good to have your drawings aligned so that it's easy to read and understand how your building how your building works, basically. So for sections and elevations, as much as possible, try to align those, and plans as well. One way we could do that is, here I have my ruler grid at the border of my workspace, and to get that, we can simply press Control R, so that's the ruler. And I could right click my rulers to change the units. So right now I'll keep it as inches. And what this helps us do is we can click it and drag this grid line to help align different objects visually. So I could click, drag, and put it to the extent of this first elevation so that I know how I could bring in my second elevation to be aligned. You'll notice that this is not scaled correctly to this one. We'll go to our properties panel, and these probably will be hidden for you. So select the three dots where we're in the transform panel. And here we could change the scale of our content. So I'll say it's 50%. And hopefully your drawings are to scale so that you won't have to worry about you don't have to worry about being like exact. It could just be 50% of whatever the original scale was. So here now they're to scale and they should align. Okay, just like that. We'll go here. Okay, those are aligned. Looks good. And I want to see what it kind of looks like without all the grids. So W is a shortcut to toggle between like workspace and presentation space. And I do this very often, just like looking back, seeing if it looks good or not. Okay, so I'll move this down a bit. Now I'll try again to insert some content. This time it'll be diagrams. So I'm going to select the space in which I want all my diagrams to take up, and then using the arrow keys again, determine how many boxes I'd like. Something like this. Then holding Control and using my arrows, I'm adjusting the spacing in between. So I could do that. Now when I press Control D to place my drawings, I'll select each one, holding Control to select multiple. And again, click inside the box to place them in, and we can select these boxes, go to the properties panel where we were at frame fitting, and choose one of these options to adjust their sizes into these boxes. And yeah, you'll notice that this isn't the same project. These are all different projects, but the layout is what is important at the moment. It'd be nice if it was bigger. So how I'm increasing the size is I'm holding Control Shift Alt and selecting one of the corner grids, and this should scale it proportionally from the center. If you don't hold Alt and you're only holding Control Shift, then you're scaling from a corner, like that. And I'm just using the arrows to adjust the position of it. If you hold Shift and use the arrows, it'll go in larger increments, just like that. Does anyone have any questions so far?
Are you also going to post these shortcuts on each website?
Yeah, I'll make a little document associated with each tutorial. Has their like own manual for what we covered in each week. So this one I'll put all these little shortcuts. Okay, we've went through frame fitting options, a little bit of composition. Okay, so I'll go through a booklet, which I've already created, but it functions the same in terms of creating the document. So you could choose book or you could choose document. I find document works fine for a booklet. And we'll run through some of this stuff with the 17, height is 11 for a tabloid. We'll want facing pages because this will determine where the spine is. And we'll continue on. So what I mean by facing pages is that we have this center line on the pages panel, which will show where the left and the right page meet, versus if I go to my poster panel, we don't have that. They're all separate pages and it doesn't matter the orientation of which page is before which. Okay, so I have my document already created. It's my example booklet, and I've already laid it out a little bit. So for your title page, have all the necessary information, your project title, course code, student name, date, so that your prof can identify that's you. And however you want to, I guess, animate your first page and describe your project, you can. Some people do like a little party or a rendering or just words, whatever's fine, just as long as you have necessary information inside. And so with a booklet, there's more need for consistency and continuity in terms of your information, how it's displayed. So one item that we can look into is the master page. And these are kind of like templates that you could apply to the pages that you currently have. And you can place information like your project title, your name, page numbers. You could put like a color block and have that as a place where you put all your information. So right now we don't have any master pages applied to our pages. To do so, we can select the range of pages in our pages panel, selecting the first and selecting the last, holding shift while you're doing that to make the selection. We'll right click and we can apply master to pages. So they'll bring up this dialog and we can apply a master page to all of them. And you'll see that in this master page, we have this, I guess, turquoise blue block that would be nice to have all our information or diagrams, etc. I'll show you how we can apply these. So at the top is where we can see our master pages. I have two so far, A master and B master, or we can go to the bottom bar here where we can select any of the pages and go to our master page. So this functions just like your Pages workspace, you have two here, and then you can place items and use all of these commands like you were in this workspace. So I've placed a block, but this time let's do page numbers. And so I'll place a text box. The shortcut for text box is T. And instead of having to number each one, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I can use my master page to apply a current page number, I guess, special character, so that no matter however you order your pages, whatever the current page number is underneath the page in the page panel is going to be what's reflected on your sheet. So I could create my text box, right click, and insert special character. It'll be a marker, so any one of these are fine, but this one is what you'll probably use the most, which is current page number. And you can see there's a shortcut for that. So I've made it at this corner. I'll drag it over to the other corner, just like that. Maybe I'll press W to go back into my workspace and then adjust this text so that it's justified to the right. We can do that by going back to the properties panel, and in our paragraph section, choose right justify. And so when I exit my master page by going into our pages set, you'll see that in the corners we have our page numbers, 3, 5, 4. And if I were to change the order for these, I'll select one page and drag it to this side. You'll see that they still apply and they're in order. Okay, and yes, you could, what's good is you can't really modify these. They're locked. They're just items that are going to be in the background. But in case you do need to modify it in the page, and you don't want it on this page, for example, because it's all going to be one rendering, then you could hold Control, I'm just looking at my notes, Control Shift click, and now it'll be an editable item in your workspace. You delete that. Control Shift click, and now it's editable. You could change it however you want, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Does this page has this master template as the template of the page now?
Yeah, and you'll know what master template you have based off the letter that's put into the corner. So I can change these all to master page B, which doesn't have anything at the moment. Okay, and you'll see that master page B is applied because it has to be in the corner.
And so if you directly edit some of those elements that are linked to the master, it's actually changing the master?
It's not changing the master, it's just overriding that master page. So you're bringing in those elements or content so it's editable in the page, but you're not like destroying the master page. The master page is going to remain whatever the way it is.
If you modify your master page after that, after you apply changes to some document pages, will your modification be like
updated?
seen on the updated pages?
Okay, let's try that. So I'm going to Control Shift click my project title here, and this comes from my master page B. And I'll delete it, for example. We'll go now into our master page and adjust this. Say this is a little higher. This is a little higher too. And we'll go back to that page that we removed it from. And I think it was this one. No, it was this one. Mm-hmm. So we've overridden that element, and it's not going to show up even though we've edited.
If you modify another element, not this element, some other element.
Yeah, we could do another element.
Or
it should,
add. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It should update because you haven't overwritten or overrided that element.
Mm-hmm.
So this should be there. But it's going to be in the background, so any content that you have over
Mm-hmm.
top
Mm-hmm.
might be annoying, so that's why we override some stuff. So shift
But
click.
I think it was another page probably, because you
Oh
deleted,
yeah,
right?
yeah, that's true. It's here,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I
page
see.
3.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm
Okay.
also just curious, like, what if you decide that you want to revert back to what's on the master on those pages where you edit it, or if you're going to say drag and drop, like change the order of the pages, will the edits follow the page when
It
you
will
shuffle
follow
them?
the page that you have. Yep. We could see what it's like if we reapply a master page to this one, and I think yeah, everything will reapply. So you're overriding that override, or just reverting it back to all the content on the master page when you reapply. So that's what you could do if ever you make a change and then you're not happy with it and want to go back from the beginning. So just select the page and reapply the master page. Okay. Few more items. We have character styles. Character styles are ways to keep your text consistent. So sometimes when you're creating a new text, those are my words, I don't want like all red. That's just the default for now. But if you've made a style, like you've made it a specific font size and specific font family, and you want to keep that consistent every time you make a new dialog box and not have to manually change it, you could create a character style. So how we could do that is simply select the text, and in our properties panel, there'll be a section called text styles. And right now I have no styles currently on, sorry, character styles. I don't have any attributed to this text, but I will create a new one through this character style plus sign. Let's call this body text. Oh, do we? Let's call this body paragraph. And with this little pencil, we can edit and head to this dialog box. Change the title of this character style, but most of the information we probably want to select is these three panels. So basic characters is where you choose your font family. I'll say it's crimson text, which is a serif font. We could do bold, and however you're doing this at your computer, just pick a bunch of random settings and see what the result is, and I'll say black, okay? And now I don't have a style applied to it. From this drop-down menu, we'll select body paragraph. It should change to body paragraph. Okay, there we go. And now you could easily apply this to any of your text boxes. So select them, choose the character style, and it's not working. Oh, so weird. I guess we have to be within the text box in order to do that. Okay, so just keep that in mind. You have to be in the text box to update it. And so if ever these character styles need to update, you can just go right into the character style settings and make the change as a global change. So let's make this 21. Okay. And it should apply to everything that has this style applied to it, just like that. Right here, I have some placeholder text. So instead of like typing a bunch of random stuff, you could click inside the text box and fill with placeholder text, and it should fill to the extents and give you an idea of what your words are going to look like within your document. And I would suggest, where is this? I would suggest when you select the text in your text box to go to the paragraph setting and unhyphenate, just because it's cleaner to read that way, especially when you have smaller widths for a column. That'll just make it a lot more easier to read. You guys have any questions on character styles? Placeholder text. Okay.
So far,
And
just really loving how much easier that is than, say, doing this in Word or something like that. Like, you could have styles and stuff in Word too, but I don't know.
oh yeah,
It's better.
ever since I started using InDesign, I'm like, who uses Word? Like, Word is the worst. You could just do everything Word can do, and well, not everything, but you have so much more freedom in organizing your content and making it graphically appealing. So I'll just go through the links panel quickly to show you what would happen if I needed to update. So as I said, you want to keep all your links in one folder just so that it's easier to manage. And that's what I've done here. I have all my file presentation documents in one folder. But what if I were to update them? Say I placed all my information into InDesign, but then I wanted to make a change on the native file, and then I made the copy and replaced them. So you'll receive, weird. There it is. So you can't be in presentation mode, so hit W to go toggle into workspace mode, and you'll see that there is a warning sign saying that this is now not to date. So we can simply click each piece of content in our workspace to update them. And so what all I've done is switch these two drawings out, or I could go to my links panel up here in the corner, and they should identify what the parent link is. So I have multiple copies, but we can just hide these drop downs of the multiple copies and update the parent files by double clicking. Okay, and then sometimes I'll go back into my folder with all my documents. Sometimes, you know, things happen and things are deleted and we don't know. And you'll receive this question mark, red question mark sign saying that it doesn't know where the file path is. In that case, you'll probably have to search for the original and make a copy and place it into the folder again. But sometimes, you know, you could really just undo and type Control-Z and it should all come back. So if that's the case, try doing Control-Z before you do anything after that. Otherwise, you can't revert the change. Okay, let's see. What else do we have?
I'm sorry, Eric. When you described accidental deletion, did you mean an accidental deletion of the link or of the file?
Of the file, which would sever the link to it. And so you'll have this basically a placeholder in your InDesign file, which will display what the content is.
It's important to mention that what you see in your InDesign file is a preview of the image. So it's not the actual image. Even if you have this preview, it doesn't mean that the file is in place. And you cannot recover the file from the preview of which you have in your InDesign document.
So if I were to have an unupdated file with the yellow triangle or the red question mark, then these won't print properly. They won't print to the resolution or the image quality that you have from your files, because it's only the preview that's displaying. So everything else would be a nice quality, but these will be blurry and pixelated, kind of like how it's viewed now. So that's how it'll turn out, and that's the importance of keeping your links updated so that you are printing the correct correct images.
So I just want to tell a few words. Like, there is a huge difference between InDesign and Word. They are different class applications, absolutely different. So Word is text editor, and you're writing your articles in the, like, mostly short, but some people, they write books in Word, right? But it's text editor. So you're working with your text in Word. InDesign is a page layouting application. Page layouting is a separate thing. So when you're preparing a book, you already have text, but you want to to put your content, to present this text, and pictures which illustrate the text. You want to present it in a particular way, in a particular design of the page. And that's what page layouting applications for, not for text editing, but for creating like a layout of the pages, right? And the goal is very different. And these applications are very specific. And basically, that's like basically what you have in page layouting application. You create your page, you define your page size, because usually you have the same page size for the whole document. And then you describe text flow for the document, and you define how you place your pictures. And pictures are not embedded in this document. Like traditionally in page layouting application, you do not insert pictures in the document. In InDesign, in the modern InDesign, you can insert pictures. Don't do that. You need to link them, and it's different. So basically, images in your InDesign document will be previews of particular files which you are referencing. And this links panel will show basically what files have been referenced and where they are. So, and it takes a particular approach to, like, you need to master this approach, not embedding pictures, not inserting them into documents, but using linked files. I don't think that you are very familiar with this, but it's very important to do that. And when you do not embed your pictures, it's important how you organize the content, because where you save your files which you are referencing. And as Eric has mentioned, it's better to create a dedicated folder for that and put copies of all the images you are using in your document, you are referencing in your document in this folder. It will make it easier for you to manage and organize the images you are using.
Yeah, and then to further that, you should probably have good naming conventions. And I'm in the bad habit of, like, I save something by make a change and I have to save it again, and I start saying final, 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 and then like stupid names that don't really relate to the drawing. But if you keep with that discipline to name your drawings properly, then it'll be easier to navigate in your InDesign workspace, knowing that you have this links panel, you know what rendering 1, rendering 2 is. So if you were to click it and go to link, it'll bring you directly to that image on which sheet. And if you have multiple sheets, it becomes even a more useful tool, because then you don't have to really understand or know where exactly in the document it is. You could go to your links and know what type of file it is, and then head straight to it. And yeah, as Leo mentioned, this is this is for layout. Like you're going to be presenting this, try to make it look graphically appealing and communicate your design as best as possible. So yeah, use columns and grids to help you determine how you proportion your drawings. And the rule of thirds is really good, and it works a lot of the time. So you could have your rendering 2 blocks or 3 blocks, and then have your text as a 1 block item. And that looks decent enough to read. And I would suggest, like, you don't have to over clutter your pages. Like, let the information speak for itself. Something like this might be a bit too much. It's like a lot of text, a lot of words, many diagrams. So what am I supposed to look at? Like, there's no hierarchy. So ensuring that you're presenting the right amount of content per page, and having enough space so that it's legible from both close up and at a distance. One thing, okay, so just another item. Oops, this is huge. Most frames, text frames, are aligned to the top, so you could extend the bottom and the paragraph will be aligned to the top. But in case you want to align to the bottom, say for a legend for diagrams or an isometric, for example, then you can Control B to open text frame options. And what we're concerned with is the vertical justification. So right now I have it as bottom, but by default it's top, and we could change that to whatever vertical alignment we want. So in this case, we can continue adding more items to our list, and we'll know that the bottom is going to remain justified. So that helps if, like, you're writing stuff but then have to, like, move it up and then drag it down again and don't know which spot it is. Just justify it to the bottom by typing Control B and then going to the vertical justification tab and changing that. Yeah, and don't forget that if you're in a booklet, your layout can encompass both spaces. Think of it as like one large space that can be in dialogue with each other. So you could have your graphic information and your text information on another page, and that'll, I don't know, that I think it speaks easier to what your design is. And again, align drawings so that they're legible and we can understand one drawing against the other. What else? Yeah, that's pretty much it.
If you had like one large image that you had spreading across 2 pages in your design, like how do you set that up to make sure that the bleed doesn't cut out that center portion of the photo?
So you want to, we'll create a full page spread or full page rendering. So we'll apply this. Well, we need a bleed and slug, which just means, let's see, pages, or to edit. Guides. Well, when we create a new document, we could create bleed and slugs, which means more so bleeds. So this will be like a datum that's outside of the page border. So you'll see that that's the red line, that's a slug. And if you go print it at a print house, you could give them this file, and your rendering then has to, I'll copy this, place it in here. Your rendering has to align to that slug, and you'll probably need a larger one than this one so that they can cut off the excess, and then you won't be left with a white border around. It'll just be a perfect image like this without a white border, but that has to be specified. And I don't know if you could do that with like the CAD lab printers, but you could definitely do that at Sherwood. You just have to specify the slug when you export your file. So file, export, just put it here for now. Save. And no, that's weird. I don't have. Okay, that'll be for another tutorial. But yeah, just fit your frame and your rendering to that outside boundary, and that should be able to prevent a white border around when you print it and cut it afterwards.
Yeah, I was just curious because I've seen some books where you've got like one big spread that goes all the way across the binding. And so that's what I was thinking, is just making sure that, like, basically, I guess you would put your image once on both pages, and you would just make sure that the parts that are in the slug line up where they're cut off on each page so they continue from one to the next.
Yeah, and you just have to be fine with a little bit of that image around the border to be cut off. But yeah, that's just kind of like special printing technique. So if you're making a magazine or booklet and you're bringing it to a print house, they could do that for you.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious how it actually works, just to understand.
In print house, they print not on regular pages, they print on bigger pages, and then they cut and fold them. That's why, and cutting can be custom. So then this bleed, like these areas, they are natural for print house equipment. So they basically have, like, they define these settings on their machines when they print a particular booklet. On regular printers, like most of the printers, they have hardware margins, and so it's basically not printable areas. Hardware cannot print along the borders. It's quite steel machines which can print for the, like, can do full bleed, like for the whole page, are quite rare. So yeah, that's how it stands.
And like you were talking about, definitely, like, it makes most sense to be linking everything. Absolutely. I didn't actually realize that InDesign allowed you to actually embed things. Is there any reason why they included that? Like, would there be any weird circumstance where it would be better?
I think in the modern world, it became kind of call from public to implement this feature, but I've seen students who use embedding and they struggled and they had problems. In design, you're not supposed to embed images, you need to link images. It's the proper approach.
So what I did right now is select the image, or actually the link in our links panel, and right click to embed the link. And so now it's not like referencing the file path of the original document. It's actually taking that information and putting it into InDesign. That'll make your file really big. So I advise not to, because especially if it's a rendering, that's already a large file size, and InDesign is meant to just collect those references so that you could export and not really hold the image. So you can embed the link, and if you were to open it up into another computer that doesn't have the source files, then it will be in there. And that may be the case. You just want to send somebody like how this page looks with this text, and this text is all in InDesign, so they can open it up and read it and not have to have the source. But otherwise, if you're working by yourself and not really sending it out to people, then I wouldn't embed it. I would keep the link.
Okay, it's already about 11. We need to.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all for today, and this tutorial will be posted on that Google Sheets link. And as Amanda had asked, we'll have a document with the little shortcuts that you could use to improve your workflow.